and welcome. Tonight, we are going to talk about one of my favorite programs at TripleTen, which are our externship programs. My name is Tiffany Hall. I'm an alumni of TripleTen Software Engineering Program, a full stack engineer at Scholastic Inc., the world's largest publisher of children's books and a powerhouse in the digital education space, too. And tonight, I'm super excited to be the host of the discussion of our Slopopedia externship project. If you're new to our channel or to this series, let me just kind of fill you in on some of the details. So our externship program is one of I think the coolest programs that we have. It gives students an opportunity to work as a team, applying their skills that they're learning with us to real world tasks. And they get to showcase this in real world projects that they can then take along in their portfolios. Then, but these are for real businesses, real companies that are really out there needing real development work. Our externship managers, our designers, company representatives, they all work with students, guiding them through the process. And the team mimics the work environment of a very professional remote team as closely as possible. So, with today's stream, we're going to conclude our long-lasted multi-cohort externship program, or project, excuse me, with Slopopedia. So let's talk about the project a little bit. Slopopedia is a knowledge-based and web service for the so bad they're good movies, the B movies, and other cult classic trash cinema, which personally is all my jam. That is to me like perfect date night. So we have had 35 software engineer students, we've had 10 QA students, and they've been working on this project in different rotations for over a year, creating and testing the Slopopedia website. So on the stream with us tonight, we have our Slopopedia representative, Becca Morgan, the project mentors, Jonathan Koss, Jonathan Hudson. And then we also have Vincent, who's going to be holding it down as our student rep. And we might have some other students joining us during the live stream. So if not, Vincent's going to answer all the questions and he's going to do a perfect job because that's how he likes to roll. Anyways, let me just welcome everybody here. Thank you all so much for taking your time on a Friday night to discuss this. I'm really excited to see the final project all put together. Let's take a moment to ask Becca about Slopopedia's collaboration with TripleTen. In general, oh, you know what? Actually, I think I'm supposed to show this video first. I'm so sorry. I forgot that I am supposed to show this video from Emily. My mistake. So I'd like to share a video from Emily Tartanella, Becca's colleague, who unfortunately couldn't join our stream today, but did send us a video of her impression about the project. So Becca, I'm going to unfortunately have to put you on hold. All right, let me go ahead and see if I can do the magic of sharing the screen with the sound. Here we go.
Hey guys, this is Emily Tartanella, one of the co-creators of the Slopopedia project. Really grateful to have been able to collaborate with you guys. It's been a really cool process. I can't be there for the Friday meeting, so just throwing in answers to a couple of questions. My name is Emily. I'm an art director. In terms of the actual Slopopedia itself, that originated a few years ago, honestly, as an Excel spreadsheet. From a group of friends who really loved bad movies, and we wanted a way to kind of document that and be able to share that love when we were all in really different places. So we worked on, like I said, an Excel sheet to start, and then Becca built out this really kind of elaborate database on Bubble. It kept expanding. We kept adding things like tags, recommendations, kind of like user profiles that aggregated, your preferences and would recommend things to you. But also over time, the kind of hosting model for Bubble, which is where we were hosting it, changed and wound up being not sort of financially logical. So we wanted to explore some alternate ways of hosting the site, and that's where this collaboration came in. I think it's a really fun like challenge to build as a site. It's both kind of straightforward. It's kind of like a mix of like Letterboxd, Wikipedia, an Excel spreadsheet, and a few other things, plus the kind of recommendation feature. So yeah, really, really excited to see how it's kind of come to life. I think it's made a lot of progress since the multiple teams have been working on it. My impressions of the externship project have been really, really positive. It's just great to see the seriousness and the commitment that all the students have shown. This is something that I think matters a lot to us, but is also like it's kind of a silly prompt in that it's just like, bad movies and aggregating all that and like getting people's preferences on Hats or Nicolas Cage. So it's been really impressive to see the respect and like commitment and dedication that all the students I've seen have worked on. I know it's been kind of a lengthy process. It's more complex than it seems at the start. But yeah, overall, really positive impressions. Really impressed with the dedication, not just of the students, but of the coordinators and kind of project leads there. I feel like that's made it really seamless each time like a new cohort has come in. I think that's kind of it. Just, yeah, again, like really impressed with the hard work students have taken on this. I think it's a really nice kind of final product. And I'm excited to see it come to life in the real world. If you guys have any more questions, definitely let me know. Otherwise, nice job, and I'll talk to you all more soon.
That was a wonderful video. Thank you so much. So again, that was Emily Tartanella, Becca's colleague. And now let's talk to Becca because Becca's here. And I want to, I guess, kind of jump right in with, what were your initial expectations for the project? And do you feel like our students met them for you?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I did not expect how much time and how many hands were going to be needed to bring this to life. And the fact that when the first cohort concluded and things had really only just gotten started, that TripleTen turned around and said, "Okay, let's roll this into the next cohort." And not only let's drop this into the lap of the next group of people and say pick it up. It's like let's come up with a plan to transition this over and have somebody from the first group of people then serve in a mentorship position and then can have that kind of continuity so that the product could be continuous and make sense from one cohort to the next. So I did not expect how big it was going to be, how long it was going to last. And the commitment that Emily talked about in her video has been just a huge, not that I didn't expect that, I just didn't really know anything about y'all. I didn't know anything about this. I had met
Sure.
at an event that I was hosting. I'd met someone who had either worked with all of you or had gone through the programs. I'm not even sure exactly what her connection to all of this was, but she said, "Hey, I've got this friend who is," and this is Yulia, who's involved in this program, who runs this program. They're always looking for real world projects, and you've got this thing on this site that's about to expire. And you're not going to be able to afford it anymore. And you're asking me, because I'm a software engineer, how can you build this yourself again? And I've got this group of students who are just looking for something to build, and this would be perfect. And so the whole thing was just such a, I didn't expect any of it. And it's just been so lovely, such a lovely experience. Like every one of you has gone so far above and beyond to bring this thing to life. It's just been great.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I think it's a real testament to the commitment for the program that they were able to kind of see that, like, they could have very much ended and been like, okay, well, that was a nice start, but they were like, no, we want to see it through. We want to see it through. So I'm so glad to hear that they were able to kind of develop a full roadmap for the company, right? For Slopopedia and all of its fans.
Mm-hmm.
So how does the final project align with kind of those goals and objectives that you and Emily initially set out for?
Yeah, so the last time we saw the site, we had brought in another one of our teammates who is going to be handling the hosting and the deployment part of this. And he sat down with one of your folks and talked about what that handoff process is going to look like. And so I was just so pleased that there is going to be this finished product that we're going to be able to, start using. I haven't used it yet. And so as far as does it hit the brief, from what I saw, it does. Everything looks, exactly like that initial Figma design that we got way back, like you said, over a year ago. So the students were able to bring to life the design that Oh, now I've forgotten his name, but he's one of your colleagues who does the Figma designs for feel terrible.
Well, you guys have certainly had quite a few hands working, between students and
Definitely,
QA
yes.
and
Thank you.
mentors. Yeah, it is a long list, but a great one at the same
Yeah,
time.
so Danila did the initial design, and it's just really wonderful seeing how all of the students who were learning more of like the technical end of things were able to take this very sort of artsy fartsy, silly, goofy looking thing and build all of this really strong technical architecture to sustain it and support it and make it all function. So it all seems to be going, and the QA cohort was also a really cool aspect to this. So the second to last cohort that y'all had working on this was dedicated entirely to QA, going through everything that the previous cohorts, previous 3 to 5 cohorts had built, and looking at everything that had yet to be finished or everything that wasn't quite working the way it was supposed to. And so that last cohort took that list of stuff from the QA team and was able to address all of those issues as far as I know. And if there are any left, I know that we will be given a comprehensive list of everything that we need to kind of tweak at the tail end of things. So yeah,
Sure.
it's just been phenomenal work.
So now we've gone and so each time we've gone and completed let's call a sprint, a segment, right?
Mhm.
Of these, you and Emily both have given feedback to
Mhm.
our cohorts of students. And so, I'm a teacher and was a teacher, now a developer. And I know like being able to receive feedback is so hard. But how did our students do with that?
Oh, they were hungry
Did
for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay, great.
Yeah, it was absolutely no problem. I never saw any reticence or any kind of um you have a person in the back of your
That would be my son, Willie. Christmas
He
break
felt a
just
little
started.
visually distracted for a moment. Okay, fabulous.
Hmm.
Happy Christmas break to everybody. Um, where was I? The feedback. Yes, they were great at taking feedback. And I think that, I don't know to what extent that is a matter of the self-selection of people who choose to do a program like this, that they have decided that this is something I'm going to take on myself and learn how to do and change my career and, take on all of this learning. And so they're just sort of, they're doing this kind of thing because they're the kind of people who want feedback. And I don't know to what extent there's also a feedback receiving training mechanism built into the TripleTen program. It sounds like there might be, which is why you're asking me that question. And
Yeah,
so, I never had any issues with it. I love feedback. It is such a uh, critical part of any kind of, if you're the kind of person who wants to grow, it's critical. It's like food for growth. And so
absolutely.
yeah, I enjoyed those conversations immensely. Partly because I love this project so much, and partly because all of the students were really, like I said at the beginning, hungry for it. They were like, tell us what works and tell us what doesn't. And most of what they did was great. And so it was a lot of positive feedback. But when we had questions about things or things didn't quite hit the initial brief,
Yeah,
they were like, yes, 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 please, thank you, gimme, 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 which
that's
is
great.
awesome. Yeah, that's what you
I
want.
do know that code review, obviously huge part of the life cycle of software development. And so I know that TripleTen builds that in, but it's a much more kind of removed process when you're going through and doing code review versus getting feedback directly from a client. And so I'm
Mhm.
really glad to hear that, um, even in person, when there's not that kind of separation,
Mhm.
that they are firmly putting that in the right box of this is how you get better, this is how you grow, and this is
Mhm.
it's not a personal thing, it's very much
Oh,
just hitting the work.
yeah, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
wonderful. In terms of like final reflections on the students' work or any potential, and I mean, I like to think all students have potential, but I'm at the same time, like in terms of their abilities to kind of go out there and get a job, do you have any thoughts, advice, lasting thought, comments, that jokes, any other pieces you'd like to add?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I noticed throughout the entire process, any interactions that I had with more than one person on a Zoom call regarding this project, was the positive interactions that everyone seems to have with each other, whether that's two people within the same cohort, whether that's one of the mentors and the people in the cohort. It's all very clear that everyone's aligned on what their goals are, and they're all there to support each other, and everybody knows that. It's not just, I'm here to support you, but I'm doing it in a way where you don't really know, and maybe you don't trust me. You could see that trust had been built there. And that just lets you work well. That's kind of critical to working on a team. And you can't build a tool like this. You can't work really in software engineering as like a lone wolf. Like you have to communicate with people, you have to collaborate with people, you have to take that feedback. And so I was part of what Emily said in her video is that it was just so pleasant interacting with everyone. And I think that that's a testament to that collaborative space that you've built within this program. And I think that obviously the technical skills are happening, and that technical knowledge is being instilled in the students. But I think more than that, what's going to make them successful in the workplace is that ability to collaborate effectively and to work on a team effectively. And I could see that happening in every cohort with every conversation I ever had with anybody involved in this project.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think there's a real, you've really hit the nail on the head. There's a real difference between a group of high achieving individuals and a team. And that is something that I've seen through hosting these, as well as working with the students. Is, you know, TripleTen as a whole, one of my favorite pieces is the camaraderie that you end up building with your fellow students, because it is needed for the work environment. But you're right, the work just gets better the better that the team has that trust with each other.
Yep.
We'll talk to Vincent in a little bit about that trust so that he can discuss it too. Becca, thank you so much for your time. I and trust in all of this. I know as a teacher, but also as a student from this program, it means the world that people put their trust in us as students to really take y'all's vision and bring it to life. And your partnership throughout this whole year has just been amazing. And so I just can't thank you enough on behalf of all of our students for this opportunity.
Well, I'm so glad to hear it, and right back at you. It's just been, I think, so mutually beneficial and a really enriching partnership in many ways, and I'm kind of gonna miss it a little bit. So, you know, reach out if you have any other questions. Make an account on Slopopedia once it's live. I'll send you.
Oh, I've got plans for that.
Great.
Like I said, that I'm
Fantastic.
not kidding. That is date night here at my house.
Heck yeah.
D-list
Heck yeah.
movies, those are the jam.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you learned about some good new ones while going through our data.
I did enjoy the Nicolas Cage filter.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's one of Emily's favorites as well. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. All right, so let's talk now that we've talked to, you know, our Slopopedia. Let's talk to our mentors for the Slopopedia project. So we have with us Jonathan and Jonathan, no relation. And one of them is with software engineering as our mentor, and the other one is with our QA department as our mentor. And let's just jump right in and talk about, how did you guys organize the flow for this work? Because crazy amounts, right? Like just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think Jonathan, the other Jonathan, is the one that really kicked it off, right? Because by the time we got to QA, the software engineering team it was still in progress, but they had already done so much to give us enough to actually test against, right? So I'm curious, Jonathan, like what was your process to get it to that point?
Yeah, actually, and I'm not sure if you can hear, but Tumor, I believe Tumor is the other mentor that was also with us.
Yes, he snuck in.
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit on it. I'll let Tumor speak more. So I came in second to last cohort with the other Jonathan for that one in the last cohort, learning a lot from the previous mentor. And essentially we organized the work into things that we called sprints. Because we didn't have too much time, sprints were mostly week by week. And by essentially making sure that we had these micro goals, like wanting to see a page, you know, have this much functionality on it, making sure that we fix these groups of bugs, and then kind of checking in with the students on a daily cadence, whether it was asynchronously or within a meeting that we scheduled throughout the week. We were able to kind of like make sure that as we were working, we were steadily getting there to the final goal of this, of a full functionality. Maybe for one cohort, we wanted to improve the recommendation system, or for another cohort, the really big part was to make sure all the UI was kind of fixed and tailored to exactly what we had for the Figma design. I'll stop here to let Toomer talk a little bit about how he went through the process also.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I did sneak in here, Tiffany. Thank you.
Just under the
No,
radar.
yeah, no, just to build on top of what Jonathan Hudson said a little bit, it's funny because I also took over this cohort from Josh. So I wasn't even the first person to start from this, but it's interesting how just the project kind of gets handed off. And I think even more so to speak that the TripleTen's value to offer, right? This is very much how it happens in the real world. Is a project is I don't want to say done, but is worked on and then gets handed over to you, and then you need to
Yeah.
make sense of code that you didn't write. And so it's just been a process, and it's been very fun for me, and I'm glad to see it come to fruition kind of here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. I think somebody always tries to tell like people that developing, software isn't about writing code. It's like 80% reading code that you never wrote, from somebody who didn't like their job one day or something. Like it's like the worst case scenario whenever you get into it. This has been a really nice, I think, transition period. I've hosted a few of these, and it's been really nice, I think, because students knew they were passing it on to other students. So they were like super clear about some of the pieces that they've written. And so I think
Yep.
it's been a really nice opportunity for them to practice reading code they haven't written. Well, let's talk
Yep.
about like some of the other key challenges, right? Like, so obviously writing code that you've never written. No, reading code you've never written. There we go. That's a real big challenge, especially if you're new in the field. But are there any other obstacles or challenges that these students had to face this time around? And that's to all three of you, really.
The other Jonathan, do you want to kick us off this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So with what we did, we had to look at like the Figma design, for example, right? And then compare that against Jira, what was actually implemented versus and the deployed site. So we had potentially three different areas that we had to check against, right? And so that was a little bit of a challenge because there's the initial design and those don't typically always get updated. So you look at the Jira about what the requirements are and you look at that and then you see, okay, what's really deployed, right? What are we working with here? What are we comparing against, right? And so you have to have some conversations with the software engineers. So what's accurate here, right? When you don't have that information up front. And I think that's one of the things that we had to do was just that was the initial part of it because we had to find out what is the truth? What do we need to know to actually create these tests and then actually create the code to run these tests, right? And so
Multiple sources of truth is tough.
right, and that is very real world, right?
It
Because
is.
especially in a small company or a large company, there's not always somebody dedicated to documentation or updating these things in the same time frame that you are actually producing the product, right? And so just dealing with that can be a little bit of a challenge. And we even found some of that. We were ready to test some areas, but the software engineering team was right in the middle of testing or right in the middle of coding it, right? So we had to
Oh
wait
no.
for that to get pushed, for example, or we needed something from them so we could do our testing. And that coming into that, I think is really the challenge. It's not even the code and understanding what somebody else has done. It's really understanding what is required of us from a QA perspective. Once you get that, then you're golden because we're not messing with software engineering's code necessarily. We may reference it, look at it. So, like I said, the source of truth really is in the code, of what's been deployed, so we can go look at that.
Yeah,
But typically, um, if we don't understand something, that's what the mentors are there to assist us for, or the software engineering students,
hmm,
if they're still amidst in that cohort working on it. And so we have a lot of different areas from a QA standpoint with this particular project we could reach out and tap into.
that's great.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
All right, Jonathan, what about you?
Yeah, definitely the sources of truth. Because I will say this, the QA team did a phenomenal job, like categorizing. We're using their tickets now as the source of truth of how
All
things should work.
right.
But I will say, like, in terms of just challenges that students face, going back to that idea of reading code that you haven't wrote before, there was a lot of new tools that they had to learn about. They were using very modern software developing stacks. They were using GraphQL with Keystone in order to
Oh,
like
snap.
manage their database layer without having to write SQL. So instead, just using modeled classes in JavaScript, no JavaScript, along with React, and also Tailwind, um, which, a lot of students, when listing off these technologies, each one would start being bright-eyed, being like, oh, I want to learn about Tailwind. I've heard about this before. And they
Love
came
Tailwind.
they came already with a good set of skills, especially with React and Node, but getting more kind of like used to certain libraries, and then the way of thinking of working on a true full stack, being able to make sure that when you click that button, it goes all the way to the mid tier and to the back end and does exactly what it needs to, so that it can be pulled back later in reference for the user. That was a thing that once they got used to it, it became like a fire ignite them, and then they wanted to do everything.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that sounds, I mean, truly full stack, right? Going from stem to stern. What a great opportunity because, so often, so often in studying, you don't get a super amount of opportunities, right? TripleTen provides the opportunities they can, but I think that's the real glory of the externship here is working with big companies, small companies, but their needs are really full stack needs. And so it's a very real world situation where you got to go from Tailwind to from Tailwind to non-SQL databases, and know what's working where. That's fantastic. So we've talked about the tools and the technologies, um, and a bit about how it's prepared students, especially for more of those real world situations. What are some of the aspects of the project that all three of you are feeling the most proud of right now?
Let's see. I think for me, gosh, well, we found over 70 bugs to start with, right?
Holy
And
cow.
that was typically through just the manual testing phase. So we knew we were
Manual
prepared.
testing too. Holy
Yeah,
moly.
we started with manual testing.
Soldiers.
Yeah. And so that is really, I'm really proud of that because one of the key things that you get to do in the program is some manual testing, but you have some sort of guide, right? To kind of help you along to where you need to be looking for things, right? To kind of like this, you're coming in fresh, right? And so this is when the team's ingenuity comes into play, and you really know if you have a critical eye, you know if you're a QA engineer or not. When you can start thinking about scenarios or um, just taking the time to figure out different positive test cases and just what's the happy path? Okay, now what if we do something negative? What's going to happen? Are we going to crash the site? Are we going to see what we're expecting or not? Right? And that goes back to, testing like how their code is. Did the engineers think of this? Right? If we have like for expecting an
Edge
integer, we type
cases.
in a, and we
Oh,
type in a string, like what's going to happen? Right? So that those are the things that the QA team really has to think about and start using their ingenuity. And nobody's giving them a map of what to test other than, okay, explore this site on your own. We'll discuss it, and then now you can say, where do we need to test, right? What about the login page, right? Search was very complex to test, right? So different things like that. We had to come up with different scenarios and figure out what needed to be tested for the basic core functionality, and additionally some edge cases. And and based off of core functionality and edge cases, they found 70 bugs, and I think that gave the next cohort some things to work on, right? And so I'm proud of that, because better to find those bugs early than to let after they've deployed it, right? Because the engineers, they're working on building this, right? And they're like, okay, this is good. So we need to come in and say, hey, we've taken a thorough look at it, and this is what we found, and now please fix this, if it's your
Yeah.
priority. Yeah. And so I think that for me, and I would say also, the other one was that just they did a fantastic job with the presentations too. So those are the two things of the project I really like. The automation and all that's cool, but finding bugs is great because that really saves money in the long run. And
Oh, yeah.
that's the
It's
bottom
user
line.
frustration and all of
Exactly.
that, right? Like,
Right. You get a bad reputation, people stop using your application if they get frustrated with it. So you want to find all that stuff before it gets in their hands. So
yeah. Jonathan, talk to me about like things you're proud of from an SE lens.
Actually, presentation was up there for me too. I really
Oh,
enjoyed
great.
the students' presentations. They kind of like hit it out of the park. I had asked them to make sure that they match their presentation, because it's I mean, something that a lot of times gets undervalued from software engineering is actually making sure people know the value of what you've built, at
Yeah, that's
a
a great point.
stakeholder demos,
Yes,
because
I do sprint reviews at the end of my sprint every time. And that is when we are talking to our stakeholders about, like, hey, here's what we've accomplished and here's where it is in the business life cycle. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, being able to identify the value of the work that you're going for, and then actually being able to present that in a appealing way that matches the audience. I think that that's incredibly important. It also really helps for the perspective of what's next afterwards, because as soon as you build something, you got to build something else. And so the better you nail that presentation, the better it is to kind of focus in on what's the next value that can be added, to the application. Uh, Outside of the presentation, because that was all the fun stuff, the nerdy stuff. I
That's
really
all the fun
enjoy.
stuff.
Yeah. We took some time in our in the cohort. We haven't talked about this, but the mentors, we also do like one-on-ones with the students,
Oh,
and
right
a lot
on.
of the students had so many common interest in things like certifications and stuff afterwards, that we ended up scheduling those one-on-ones kind of like all together to do like little lectures on things like AWS, to review like, one, how our stack kind of gets deployed there, and then two, like how you can take that knowledge and over to your next position, whatever you're looking for and stuff like that. Also like nuances in terms of like other technologies and libraries for them to kind of like test. A lot of the students have side projects, because obviously after you learn how to build something, what else are you going to do? That's your new
Mm-hmm.
hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we reviewed cool things like D3. One student was actually preparing for interviews, and they were in talks with a natural language processing. I don't know why I can't remember it, but it is not Happy Smile, but it's a really common Smiling Face. Smiling Face is
Oh,
a natural language processing. They were trying to interview and working on open source pull requests, kind of like
oh,
as part of
fantastic.
that process. Yeah.
Wow, what a really great opportunity to just kind of take for the students really to take this opportunity, but also like branch it off. Because
Yeah.
I think that is the piece of in QA and in software engineering, like you have to be great at learning and you have to want to keep learning because there's a new tool or a new library. I know I'm trying to learn automation from my QA at work, and she's using Cypress now. Never used Cypress, trying to, figure out how that works so that I can also read along and kind of learn more. It's just always an evolution. So I'm so glad to hear that the students are able to really find that hunger for that learning. In terms of you talked about the task. like going over these reviews and thinking through. But once you review the tasks you've completed, you got to think about the tasks ahead. Did you, as a software engineering team, did you guys work together to kind of prioritize the board and make sure, kind of work through that product management piece of it?
Oh yeah, that probably was the kind of like most surprising. So at first, these students hadn't done project managing before, and a lot of them were actually afraid. One of the first lectures we always end up doing is explaining like how Git works so that when you make code changes, someone else is not going to like lose their stuff.
Yeah.
Which, it's mind blowing when you find, wait, I don't just ruin other people's work by pushing stuff. As long as you do it right, you don't.
As long as you do it right.
Yeah.
And if you
Um,
don't, there's always git revert.
yeah, but students were very surprisingly independent, very, very fast within both of the cohorts that I looked over after we established a process flow of making sure that we basically tried to essentially kind of utilize Kanban, where we just, whatever was farthest to the right, we wanted to get that right, as in closest to being done. We wanted to just get that off. So we prioritized making sure that people did peer reviews of each other's code.
Oh,
That way
nice.
it would like come to me, so I would do the final peer review, and then we would push it and everything would be merged together. And if you've already done 2 peer reviews in a row, make sure you pick up another task that's being worked on, and always prioritize like doing a task that we're blocking other pieces of work that were high priority. So we organize priority, status, and then
Yeah.
obviously dependencies.
Really
And
great.
they nailed it.
Very cool. Thank you both to Jonathan and to Toomer, who had to drop off. But thank you guys so much for your mentorship on these projects, and especially in all of the extra ways that you guys went above and beyond. It sounds like you guys had a real wonderful bond with your cohort, and so I'm really glad to see that.
We
We're
really did.
gonna see how good it was now that we talked to Vincent. So this is the part where Vincent is going to tell us how it really. Vincent, I want to let you know that, like, have you seen the final project? 'Cause we got Fred in the comments in YouTube, and he worked on the third cohort and helped out a little bit on this fourth one, and hasn't seen the finished product yet. So have you seen the finished product yet?
No, I have not. The last time I saw it was like around the end of like my cohort. So around like end of July, early August. That was the
Okay.
last time I saw it. Yeah.
So I have it on very good authority, from the Slopopedia company, that as soon as they are going to get that deployed, which, obviously we know, like, getting it deployed and put out to the web is a huge undertaking. And so once that's deployed, then we're going to go ahead and release it. Well, they will release it so everyone can check it out. And we will probably do, either a walkthrough or a video kind of Loom walkthrough, with students, and maybe even here on the YouTubes. So stay tuned for that. But until then, let's get down to the most challenging part of the project for you, Vincent. Now remember, you've got to represent all 35 software engineering students and all 10 QA students here. So, most challenging part, go.
For me, the most challenging part is actually like getting started. It's like taking everything in, like absorbing all the
Yeah,
new information that is like presented to you. Because it was something like, oh, we had our first meeting and boom, 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 all this. Like these are the links. Though Jonathan organized it really well. It was in one file and we have
great.
access to it. But at the same time, like just that amount of information that you receive on day one, that's the most challenging part. And but it is a part of the process because learning like how to like organize the information that you receive is a part of like that learning experience. So
Yeah.
that
Did you find
Mhm.
any tips or tricks that helped you out, or the cohort, really? Because I know, I mean, sharing is caring when it comes to things like that.
um when working in the project, I had a partner, like we were by twos. So we had
I love that.
different,
Lots of
yeah.
moments for pairing.
And like we have different schedule, and we're also on the different like time zone. So like communicating like actively like at the same time is kind of hard. So the trick that we did is I started like a checklist using Google Sheets. And
Right.
then in that checklist, the way we did it is that like you can mark whichever progress you've done already. So that way I don't have to actively like, oh, have you done this part? Have you checked out this part?
Mm,
It's all like it's a checklist where like you have like drop down menus and all that. So the moment let's say I come home from work and I want to check her progress, I just go to that sheet and then look at it and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is what she has done and this is what I can contribute. So that's like
fantastic.
that made it so much easier for the both of us.
Yeah, that's a really great one. I mean, working across in a remote team across time zones
Mhm.
is definitely a skill that I think every company expects you to be good at, but yet no one officially trains you on how to be good at
Mhm.
those things. So I'm really glad that you guys were able to figure that out because I also have like I have a teammate who lives in Ghana, and so that's a 8 hour time difference.
Mhm.
It's a little far, so we have to figure those things out as well. It's very real, very real. So like let's talk some more about that. You were talking about, you know, you guys have figured out a way to bridge that time zone gap, but like what about skills or knowledge? I know that Jonathan had mentioned, you know, a lot of students were learning, um, you know, libraries they'd never experienced before, but what was something that you really like were very excited to learn for this project specifically?
It was the automation part for me personally. And then as well, like for the specific project, we started using TypeScript and
Yeah.
Playwright,
Oh
which
man.
is I had to learn it the same week that we started automation. So so that is a learning process. So
Yeah, that just in time
um
learning. Again, one of
mhm,
those things that everyone thinks you can just pick up and do, but it takes real practice and focus, and things like this give you a great opportunity to figure it out while you still have that safety net.
mhm.
That's wonderful. What about timeline? Let's talk about like timeline in terms of having to work on really hard sprints, you know, meaning that like in the TripleTen program, you know, there's a lot more flexibility in terms of times and deadlines. But here, there are hard deadlines that need to be met. How did you, you and all students, but how did you guys adapt to that?
I think personally first, one thing is like working in the agile environment, like in a way, like you learn it through the program, but it's
Hmm.
mostly a concept. It's more of like, yeah, this goes like this. We do it in sprints, we divide tasks, we do it like this part, this part, this part. But
Right.
until you experience it, like until you work in an actual agile environment, you wouldn't like fully understand it. So that's like
Hmm.
a huge part or like a huge experience that I really gained from this project is like being actively working in an agile environment because you have your own expectations, you have like um your thoughts on how it goes. But then once you experience it, you learn that, oh, it's like this, it's like that. And for working on deadlines, to be completely honest, especially with the program, since it is very flexible, like you mentioned, like whenever I get busy with work and all that, I can always like just send a message to my uh
Success
to one of
manager.
to my
Yeah.
success manager and just be like, yeah, I'll be a week late and something like that. But in here, it's not. First part of it is realizing that this is not just your personal time. When you
Hmm.
work with people, when you work with a team, and I have an amazing team. So like that group of people was just like they're like dedicated to it. So a part of it is like also like doing it for your team, like not just like reaching that deadline because people are
Hmm.
putting in effort, and then so I will put my effort so theirs is not wasted. That's like
That's a
a big
wonderful
part for
team
me.
mentality
Hmm.
because that's how success happens, right? It's not one
Hmm.
person crossing that finish line; it's everybody crossing the finish line. And I think that is something that students get a taste of through the code jams that we do, because it's the first time they've had to work on a team that's real small, but you had to work on a team that's quite large. And again, had a lengthy amount of time to it. So it's not like, yeah, I can be a great teammate for 2 days. This is like, no, it's longer than that.
Yeah, I wanted to add into like Vincent was an amazing teammate. He was always there to help the other team players, and it was really good with this particular cohort. Usually they're really great. This one was like exceptionally great, just like he said. And part of that is I like to really focus in on everybody getting to know each other early on in the process, right? Because what that does, that gets you understand, oh, okay, this person has a child at home or this person works late. So you can kind of like start understanding, okay, I can adjust my time because I know they work late, I can do this and you plus you have a little more compassion. And not only that, but you're more apt to speak with your teammate. It doesn't feel as weird and as cold. You have a good
Yeah.
relationship across the board because those soft skills are really important, and I like to work on those a lot. And I think some teams make it easier than others. Some have a lot of like introverts that don't really care to like you know chat with others, and those are probably more challenging for them. This particular team was just fantastic. Their communication was like very, it was excellent.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so, Vincent, in terms of like your comfort zone, Jonathan just mentioned comfort zone. What part of this really pushed you out of your comfort zone? Was it the teamwork with other people? Was it the timelines? Was it the just sheer volume of knowledge to take in? What really put you out there?
I think it is a little bit of everything. Like I cannot say like one thing specifically, because again, like through the course and through the program, you learn a little bit of everything. So I think specifically like the struggle is like just transforming these concepts that you learned into like actual work, actual action. So say same way with like what I said earlier. It's like from it being just like, oh yeah, you learn it like yeah, you sprint agile environment, but like immersing yourself in that environment itself. So I think that is like the main hurdle or something like that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a real difference, like you said, there's a real difference between what we're taught in the program,
Mhm.
but I think that is, again, the best part about TripleTen is that there's so many opportunities that, like, yes, they teach you the program, but even in the code jams, even in these externships, all students really come out saying, like, it was great to be able to put all of this together. So that way it's not just like, well, I have to focus on this one piece of learning. I have to be able to communicate it. I have to be able to work with my team. I have to be able to follow this deadline acceptance criteria. Kind of putting it all together it is a whole different world out there.
Mhm.
Any last thoughts or comments you want to make? Anything that I maybe forgot to ask that you make sure you really want to say?
Um, I think just like a few like of like my first impressions on the website, because I
Yeah.
don't know if I mentioned it to like the QA team when we did our externship, but like I have a small background on like front end development as well. I started in high school, like I did it, and for like one of my classes, my first one of my the first websites that I made or like designed is also about movies. It's like for my project, I did it about like I put like the whole alphabet on top, and then if you click it, it will lead you to like a page with like
Oh.
the movies I have watched that starts with like letter A or something like that. So right at that first meeting about the externship, and then I saw it was like oh, it's about movies. So I kind of felt like that direct connection immediately with the
Yeah.
project. So I think that also made it like exciting for me because it is something that interests me. So,
Yeah.
and looking back, that is also one thing like when you are looking for like a position or looking for like what you want to focus on your career, um you also have to consider like the things that you like, the things you enjoy. Because again, it might sound cliche, but like if you do what you love for work, it wouldn't feel like you're working since you're
Yes.
enjoying what you are doing. So that.
Yes, I love that so much. That is so very real, and I believe that so much to my core. I'm so glad that you got to have this connection with the project as well. And now I'm hopeful that you'll go back to your high school project and QA it properly, because I'm sure it's awful.
I know. I don't think I even used CSS for it.
Oh dear.
Think I think I made like my icons from Photoshop, saved it as like PNG and then inserted it. I'm pretty sure. And I tried looking for it, but I think I lost it in one of my old computers, but I tried looking for it. So
Oh goodness. Yeah, I taught JSON in high school for a little bit, and those projects were on par with my GeoCities projects from back in the day. Back in the day. Back in my day. All right, gentlemen, this has been lovely. Thank you so very much. It's time for us to wrap up tonight, but I know that the world is still waiting for the final presentation of Slopopedia. And so stay tuned to our socials, and we are going to announce when we will, as well as our Discord, and we will announce when we're going to A, have it released, and then B, when or if we're going to record a walkthrough and put it up on our YouTube channel as well, or put snips of it on our social media. And then when it goes live, you can bet your bottom dollar me and everybody else who has been involved in this will be out there pitching the website, because it's really just a great website, and it's wonderful to see somebody's dream that we all share, this weird quirky love of like terrible terrible movies, but we all share it and we can all enjoy that joy together. So it's just a really nice warm and fuzzy thing, especially in this holiday season. So all right, congratulations again to Slopopedia and to all of the students and mentors who worked on our project. It's obviously super amazing. The amount of skill and effort it takes is, I think Becca said it best when Becca said that I wasn't quite sure how much work it was going to be. I think we've all been in that moment where we have this great idea and then all of a sudden it turns into a year-long project. And so thank you all so much for being a part of it. If you are a company and you would be interested in partnering with us, just the way that Slopopedia has, please check out the TripleTen website. There is a link under this video description, and you'll see our contact information there. If you are a student or just somebody watching at home and you want to discuss the project or give feedback, go ahead and share your thoughts in the comment section below or hit us up on the socials. We love hearing that sort of thing. Thank you to everybody so much for your time this evening, and I hope all of you have a wonderful holiday season. And I'm going to catch you guys in the new year.